Picture it. Endless plains. A sky so wide it feels like it might swallow you whole, and the distant sound of hooves pounding the earth. The American West in the 1800s was raw, wild, and full of promise. Freedom, fortune, and new beginnings pulled people westward. But what those history books often leave out is the smell. Forget Hollywood's dusty but glamorous frontier towns. The real Wild West? It was filthy. It stank. And for many, it was a breeding ground for disease. This isn't just a story about cowboys and gunfights. This is about how settlers survived, or didn't, in a time when hygiene was practically a foreign concept. Welcome to the untold side of the Wild West, where spittoons overflowed, beds crawled, and bleach wasn't for laundry. Walk into any saloon in 1870s Dodge City, and you'd be greeted with more than the clink of poker chips and the smell of whiskey. You'd hear it, tooey, over and over. Spitting was a way of life. Cowboys chewed tobacco by the handful and dipped snuff that required them to constantly spit. Floors were often layered with sawdust to soak up the mess. Spit, dirt, even blood. These weren't just floors. They were breeding grounds for bacteria and sickness. Tuberculosis and pneumonia spread through droplets. Public towels hung at saloons and railway stops, shared among dozens of unwashed faces. And while some towns eventually cracked down, banning spitting and even threatening jail time or hefty fines, the damage was often already done. A good night's sleep was rare in the Wild West, not because of the outlaws or gunfights, but because your bed was alive. Mattresses, if you had one, were stuffed with straw or hay. Affordable? Yes. Comfortable? Not really. Sanitary? Absolutely not. Lice, affectionately nicknamed Seam Squirrels, burrowed into the bedding seams and infested everything. Your clothes, your hair, your skin. Add in the lack of screens on windows and doors, and you had flies, mosquitoes, and crawling insects as your bedtime companions. Each night was a battle between your body and the biting, buzzing wilderness around you. Lean hair in the Old West wasn't a matter of choice. It was a luxury. Soap was often made from animal fat mixed with lye, a harsh chemical that could burn or irritate the skin. Bathing too often was discouraged. Some believed it made you sick by opening your pores. So when it came to hair care, people got creative. Men and women alike turned to eggs. The whites were mixed with cold water and rubbed into the scalp. Too warm and, well, scrambled eggs. Soap itself, when it was used, came from the byproducts of survival. After a successful hunt, pioneers would render every part of the animal. Meat for food, hides for leather, and fat for soap and candles. In theory, it was resourceful. In practice, it smelled terrible and stung like fire. Toothache? In today's world, it's a minor inconvenience. Back then, it was a crisis. No toothbrushes, no dentists. Maybe a communal brush at a train station, or a knife to pick food out of your teeth. And when the pain got too much to bear, you'd find the man with the strongest hands and the sturdiest pliers, usually the town barber, sometimes the blacksmith. There were no painkillers beyond whiskey, no sterilization. One pull, that was the goal. And if it didn't come out on the first yank, you'd hope you passed out before the second. Dust didn't just coat the landscape, it got into your lungs, your eyes, your food. With each gust of wind came a curtain of grit that settled into every crack and crevice. Cleaning was a constant battle. Dust storms could darken the sky in broad daylight. They weren't just inconvenient, they were deadly. Children, the elderly, livestock, all suffered from respiratory problems due to the ceaseless inhalation of dirt and debris. People wore bandanas or bonnets not just for style, but to survive. And yet, no matter how hard you tried, dust was a fact of life. For women, surviving the West wasn't just about food and shelter. It was about maintaining impossible beauty standards in an environment that couldn't have cared less. Porcelain skin, untouched by the sun, was the mark of a proper lady. Women sweltered under full-length dresses, gloves, and bonnets in 100-degree heat. Some even turned to skin bleach, a practice that often caused burns, scarring, and long-term health problems. Why? Because in a world of grit and grime, pale skin was a sign of refinement, even if it came at a deadly cost. No running water meant no flushing toilets. Instead, outhouses dotted every frontier town, wooden shacks built over hand-dug pits, reeking of human waste and crawling with flies, and sometimes black widow spiders. When the hole filled up, the solution was simple: move the outhouse and dig another. Some settlers even dumped waste directly into streams. And those same streams, they were often used for drinking, laundry, and dishwashing. If you were lucky, your outhouse had a seat. If not, you were squatting in the dark, holding onto a rope for balance, hoping nothing bit you mid-business. Cholera, scarlet fever, smallpox. If there was a disease to be caught, odds are the frontier had it. Tainted water, communal towels, unwashed hands, open sewers. It was a perfect storm. In some settlements, everyone simply expected to get sick. Death from disease often outpaced death from violence. People didn't connect the dots between hygiene and illness, not because they were stupid, they just didn't know any better. Germ theory was still a novel idea, and so they drank the water, coughed on each other, and wondered why the entire town fell ill. When all else failed, there was whiskey. It burned going down, sure, but it also burned out infection, numbed the nerves before surgery, and powered lanterns when fuel ran out. It could seal a deal, pay a debt, or ease a heartbreak. Cowboys called it things like tarantula juice, coffin varnish, or red-eye. It wasn't refined, it wasn't safe, but in the absence of modern medicine, it was the closest thing to a cure they had. Beer existed too, but it was warm, flat, and short-lived without refrigeration. Whiskey? It packed a punch and made you forget, if only for a little while, just how dirty life really was. So next time you watch a Western or walk through a recreated frontier town, remember, the grit wasn't just in the gunfights. It was under your fingernails, in your lungs, and in your drinking water. The Wild West was a testament to survival, not just from outlaws, but from the land itself. And perhaps the most heroic feat of all wasn't taming the frontier, but surviving its stink.